The first bell rang just after midnight. It wasn't supposed to. The old psychiatric hospital had been mostly abandoned for years. Power was cut off in every wing except the one where Nurse Eliza worked her shift. The demolition crew was scheduled to tear it down in the morning. Only one patient remained in the entire building. So when the bell tolled through the empty holes, deep, metallic and shaken, the old pipes, it froze her blood. Because no one had touched that bell tower in decades. Chapter 1. The last shift. Eliza Carter hated night shifts, but she needed the money. The psychiatric hospital was on its last legs, closing after years of funding cuts and scandals. Most of the patients had been relocated months ago. Only one remained. The staff called him the last patient. His name was Harold Greene, 72 years old, thin, pale, with a shock of white hair and sharp eyes that seemed far too awake for a man who spent the last 3 decades inside padded rooms. His file said delusional disorder, but when Eliza read his note, she noticed something odd. Every entry from past doctors mentioned the same phrase, claims he is trapped. Not mentally ill, but imprisoned. The hospital had ignored him for years. At 11:45 p.m., Eliza unlocked the ward door with her key. Her footsteps echoed down the long corridor. The fluorescent lights above flickered, buzzing faintly. Most of the rooms were empty now, their beds stripped, doors open like gaping mouths. Only one door remained closed, room 17. She paused before it. Through the tiny window, she saw Harold sitting upright on his bed, staring at the door as if he had been waiting for her. "You're late," he said. Eliza frowned, glancing at her watch. "It's not midnight yet." He shook his head. "Not for long." Chapter 2. The warning inside. Harold sat with his back straight, hands folded on his knees. He didn't look frail. He looked prepared. "Tomorrow they'll come," he said, "with hammers, drills, machines. They'll tear this place down brick by brick." "That's right," Eliza said gently. "You'll be transferred in the morning." Harold's lips tightened. "That's what they tell you, but listen carefully. This place isn't closing because of money or because it's old. It's closing because something in here must never be let out." Eliza kept her professional smile. "Mr. Greene, the hospital's closing because it's unsafe. Asbestos, black mold." He leaned forward, his eyes burning. "That's not what you hear at night, is it?" Eliza froze. Because she had been hearing things. In her first week, she heard faint footsteps in the locked wings, doors slamming in empty corridors, the sound of water dripping when the pipes had been drained years ago. She forced herself to stay calm. Hospitals are noisy buildings. They creak. They know. His voice cut like a blade. They warn. Before she could answer, the bell rang, a deep, metallic toll that shook the walls. Chapter 3. The first bell, Eliza jumped to her feet. That, she stopped herself. The hospital bell tower had been sealed off years ago. She had seen the demolition reports. No one should be able to ring it. Harold closed his eyes. The first bell means it's awake. Her throat tightened. "What's awake?" He opened his eyes slowly. Don't ask questions you don't want answered. Just remember this. When you hear the third bell, do not look behind you. The fluorescent light above them flickered. For a moment, the room plunged into shadow, and in that half-second Eliza thought she saw something moving in the corner. Something tall. Something that wasn't Harold. She blinked, and it was gone. Chapter 4. Empty halls. Eliza left room 17, her hands shaking. The corridor stretched endlessly, lined with empty doors. She tried to rationalize. Maybe someone in maintenance had turned the bell on by mistake. Maybe it was part of the demolition prep. But when she passed the nurse's station, the old intercom crackled. A faint whisper crawled through the static. Don't look behind you. Eliza's heart slammed against her ribs. She ripped the plug from the wall, cutting the power. The whisper stopped instantly. Silence returned. But it didn't feel like silence. It felt like something was waiting. Chapter 5. The shadows moved. The clock on the nurse's station read 12:17 a.m. Eliza sat rigid in the chair, staring at the unplugged intercom. Her skin prickled with cold sweat. She wanted to leave, walk out, get in her car, never look back, but she couldn't. Not with Harold locked in room 17. Not with her name on the shift log. She forced herself to breathe slowly. In, out. The hospital was silent again. Too silent. Then she heard it. A soft scuffing sound, like shoes dragging on the floor. Not far away, just around the corner. Hello, she called, her voice cracking. The sound stopped. Eliza gripped her flashlight and stepped into the hall. Her light swept across peeling paint, empty doorways, and cracked floor tiles. Nothing. Then the beam caught something. A shadow. Long and thin, stretching across the far wall. But there was no one there to cast it. Her breath hitched. She aimed the light higher, lower, across the corridor. The shadow didn't move until she took a step closer. Then it slid across the wall, vanishing into the dark like water retreating into a drain. Eliza staggered back, her heart hammering. No, 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 no. She turned to run back to the nurse's station, but the chair was gone. Chapter 6. Second bell at 1 a.m. The second bell tolled. The sound was deeper this time, echoing through the empty wings like a death knell. Dust shook from the ceiling. Harold's voice carried faintly from room 17. It's moving now. Eliza clutched her flashlight tighter. What is the one this place was built to contain? Harold replied calmly, as if explaining the weather. It feeds on eyes. On the moment you look where you shouldn't. Her throat tightened. What does that even mean? But Harold only said, 2 bells down, 1 left. You must not be here for the 3rd. Eliza backed away. She wanted to scream at him, demand answers, but she couldn't. Because from the corner of her eye just barely she saw movement. A tall, thin figure at the end of the corridor. She snapped the flashlight toward it. Nothing. But when she lowered the beam, her own shadow on the wall looked wrong. It was taller than her, longer, and and it wasn't standing still. It was breathing. Chapter 7. The Vanishing Rooms by 2 o'clock a.m. Eliza had stopped trying to sit still. Every room she passed seemed to change when she looked away. Doors she swore had been opened were closed. Beds were neatly made, then stripped bare in the blink of an eye. In one room, she found fresh handprints smeared across the inside of the window. She checked the chart. That room had been empty for 10 years. Her radio crackled, static hissed, then a voice, barely audible. "Eliza, come back." Her chest seized. It was her own voice. She dropped the radio, and it clattered on the tiles. When she looked up, every door in the hallway was opened, dark mouths yawning, waiting. And then, faintly, from one of the rooms, a whisper, "Third bell, soon." Chapter 8. The lockdown Eliza sprinted back to wardroom 17. She needed Harold. Answers? Anything. But the corridors stretched longer than before, twisting into angles that shouldn't exist. She turned left, then right, then realized she was circling back to the same hallway. The hospital was changing, closing in. Finally, she stumbled to room 17. She yanked the door open, and Harold was gone. The bed was empty. On the wall, written in thick, shaky letters, were the words, "Don't look behind you." Eliza's breath came in ragged gasps. She spun around, shining her flashlight wildly. The corridor was empty. Then the bell began to toll. The third bell. Chapter 9. The third bell. The sound rattled her bones. The walls vibrated. Ceiling tiles fell like brittle teeth. Eliza pressed her hands over her ears, but it didn't stop the sound. The bell rang inside her skull, shaking her vision. Behind her, footsteps began. Slow, dragging. The flashlight flickered. The beam dimmed. Eliza's heart pounded. She remembered Harold's words. "Don't look behind you." The footsteps grew louder, closer. She forced herself forward, down the hall. Her legs trembled, nearly giving out. Something whispered her name, right against her ear. "Eliza." She squeezed her eyes shut, biting back a sob. Then the flashlight died, and the footsteps stopped. Chapter 10. The last patient when Eliza opened her eyes again. She was outside. The morning sun was rising. Demolition crews in hard hats walked past her, confused to see her standing alone in the parking lot. "Miss, you're not supposed to be here. This place is condemned," one worker said. Eliza turned back toward the hospital, but the building wasn't there anymore. Just an empty field. She touched her arm. Her skin felt strange, and then she realized her shadow was still moving, even though she stood perfectly still. Chapter 11. The empty field. Eliza stood rooted in place, where the psychiatric hospital had been. There was now only grass and scattered rubble, as though the building had been torn down years ago. The demolition crew spoke casually, walking past her. "Been nothing here since '98, one said. "Strange place to wander, Miss." But Eliza's keycard was still in her hand. Her shoes were coated in dust from its corridors. Her skin still prickled with the cold air of the wards. "No," she whispered. "I was just inside." The men didn't hear her. Or maybe they weren't listening. They carried on, setting up their equipment. And then she saw him, Harold Greene, standing at the edge of the field, staring at her. "Mr. Greene," she called. He raised a finger to his lips and vanished. Chapter 12. The files back home. Eliza couldn't let it go. She stayed awake for 3 nights, digging through hospital archives online. Every record of the psychiatric facility stopped abruptly in 1998. Photos of the grounds showed only an empty lot, even in the years she had supposedly worked there. Her pay stubs for the job missing. Her nurse's ID card gone from her wallet, but tucked inside her bag, crumpled and stained. She found one thing she couldn't explain. A Polaroid. It showed her standing in front of room 17. Behind her, a tall shadow stretched across the wall, its head bent low, almost touching hers. She dropped it, heart racing, and when she bent to pick it up, the photo had changed. Now she was gone. Only the shadow remained. Chapter 13. The whispering walls of Eliza's apartment grew unbearable. At night, the neighbor's walls seemed to breathe. She would wake to find shadows pooled in the corners of her bedroom, darker than they should be. The whispers began on the 4th night. At first, muffled, like voices in another room. Then clearer. First bell, awake. Second bell, moving. Third bell, behind you. She pressed her palms to her ears. "Shut up," she screamed. The apartment fell silent, but when she turned toward her bedroom mirror, words were scrawled across the glass in condensation. "Don't look behind you." Chapter 14. Harold returns. She saw him again 2 nights later. Harold, standing in the hallway outside her apartment. This time, she ran to him, grabbing his sleeve. "What's happening to me? What did you do to me?" His eyes were sad. "I warned you. I tried to keep you from hearing the 3rd bell. You knew this would happen. I am not your enemy," he said quietly. "I am like you." Her stomach dropped. "What?" "I was a nurse once in that hospital. I heard the bells. I looked, and I've been trapped ever since." Eliza staggered back. "You're not a patient." "No," he whispered. "I'm a prisoner. And now so are you." Chapter 15. The 4th bell. The bells returned. Not 3 this time. A 4th. It rang inside her apartment, loud enough to rattle dishes, crack the glass in her windows. Eliza felt her knees, clutching her head. "Stop! Stop!" Harold stood unmoving in the doorway. "It's too late. When the 4th bell rings, it means you've been chosen. The shadow isn't following you anymore. It's inside you," she screamed, covering her face. When she lowered her hands, Harold was gone, and her own shadow stretched across the wall, tall and bent, its arms too long, its head cocked at a broken angle. It raised its hand slowly and waved. Chapter 16. The vanishing, the days blurred, time slipped. Sometimes Eliza woke in her bed, other times on the floor, with no memory of how she got there. Her reflection grew less familiar each morning, the eyes darker, the face thinner. On the 7th night, she looked in the mirror and realized her reflection wasn't moving with her. It smiled when she didn't. She smashed the glass, but when she turned, shards on the floor still showed her reflection, each one smiling, grinning wider, blood seeping from the corners of its mouth. Chapter 17. The last visit, the knock came at midnight. 3 slow raps against her door. Eliza knew before she opened it who it would be. Harold. His skin was grayer now, his eyes darker. "They're coming for you," he said simply. "You can't run. You can only accept it." "What are they?" she whispered. He tilted his head. "Not what? When?" "The bells are not a warning. They're a countdown. When the final toll comes, there is no Eliza, only what waits behind her." She backed away. "No, I won't let it." But Harold only repeated, "Don't look behind you." Then he faded, like smoke blown away. Chapter 18. The fifth bell. The 5th bell came just before dawn. This time, it was not sound alone. The whole building shook, and the walls split with long, jagged cracks. Black shapes seeped from them, writhing like smoke. Her neighbors' screams filled the hallway. Doors slammed. Glass shattered. Eliza curled in the corner, covering her eyes. The whispers filled the air, all voices overlapping. First bell. Awake. Second bell. Moving. Third bell. Behind you. Fourth bell. Inside you. Fifth bell. You are gone. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. And then everything went dark. Chapter 19. The empty apartment. When Eliza's landlord came by 2 days later, the apartment was empty. No furniture, no dishes, no bed, just bare walls, as though no one had ever lived there. But in the corner, etched deep into the plaster, were the words, "Don't look behind you." Chapter 20. The new nurse. A month later, a new psychiatric nurse named Dana started her first night shift at a small clinic outside town. The building was old, creaking, but the staff assured her it was safe. "Only one patient needed checking in the West Wing," they said. "An elderly man." Dana walked the halls nervously, clutching her clipboard. The lights flickered, buzzing. At the end of the hall, she paused before a door. Room 17. She peeked through the window. Inside sat a young woman with hollow eyes and a pale smile. Her name tag still pinned crookedly to her uniform. Eliza Carter. She looked up slowly, meeting Dana's gaze. And from somewhere deep in the building, a bell began to toll. Once,